Hi, this is Hunter Foster, the artistic director for the Redhouse Art Center here in Syracuse. And I want to thank everyone for joining us for another edition of REDTalks, our online show in which we discuss theater and we bring on some of our alumni and former artists who have worked at our theater to talk about the art of putting theater together. So Tuesday, if you tuned in Tuesday, we had some internet troubles. So we tried desperately to get online, but we're now that we have a film studio, recording studio in my second bedroom, that it's sort of impossible sometimes when the internet goes out. So yeah, the internet went out and we couldn't do it. But my guests decided to come back tonight, which I'm so thankful for them, and I thank them for donating their time and coming back to talk about designing, which. If you don't know, I mean, I work with a lot of really talented designers, and there's a lot that goes into designing, and it starts months out before we do a production. So it's going to be a great conversation with some of my favorite designers. We've gotten some designers that have all worked at Redhouse. So before we start, the first thing I want to say is it's a sad day for the Syracuse theater community as we lost Patrick Carmen, who was a beloved figure in our community. And Patrick lost his life yesterday, and we just want to wish the family well. I never got to meet Patrick, unfortunately, but I did follow him on Facebook and communicated with him a bit. And to see the sort of outpouring of love to him from the Syracuse community has been really inspiring. And he was a really beloved figure, and he was loved by many people. So I just want to send condolences to his family, and he will be remembered for a long time. Also, we have some great things that are happening right now in our theater. So we're having in-house summer camps, which is really exciting. So we've got kids. Right now we have 27 kids in our building. And what's so amazing, I watched both their shows today, and this is more focused on choreography. And the kids are coming in, they're wearing masks, they're social distancing. Everyone gets temperature checked every single day. We have antibacterial soap everywhere around the theater, and the kids are just doing great. And I watched both their routines today, and they're fantastic. So what we do is we have these camps. They rehearse for a week. Next week is Jasper and Deadland. That's going to be 2 weeks. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, they have a recording. And so we actually record it, and we get to send it to the families and to the parents. And it's been really rewarding to sort of see, these kids come in and, give their all. And I think for all of us, what was, and I told them today, what was really exciting is the fact that, this theater has been dark, since Romeo and Juliet was the last thing that we've produced here. And we were in the midst of doing Fences when the pandemic happened. And so it's been really sort of great to see the theater come alive again, and sort of seeing the kids sort of bringing it to life, telling stories, having a great time. So we still got some other camps coming up. We still have, and here's some photos, like the kids rehearsing. This is some of the Alice Olam, who's the teacher and sort of directing these two shows. And then here's some more choreography here. So yeah, and you can tell the kids are wearing masks. They're having a great time. So we have some other camps that are coming up. We have Circus Camp, which is coming up, and we also have Jasper and Deadland, which is coming up. A show that I actually wrote, which is exciting. And then we have Rock Camp. So if your kid wants to be a rock star, you can check out Rock Camp. And then there's a camp for the littles as well. So some of the little kids, some of the little tykes out there. So check out everything out on our website, theredhouse.org. And you can get some information about our camps, our classes, our online events. We got a lot of stuff going on. We're not going to let the pandemic sort of take us down. We're going to keep moving. We're going to keep producing stuff. We're going to, talk at some point. We're going to talk about what we're going to do in the theater next season. As soon as we're allowed by the state, we are going to produce theater, and we're going to start even thinking about 21-22. So a lot of things going on. Urinetown, which was announced earlier, will be the start of our 21-22 season. And it will be the 20th anniversary, and Urinetown will take place in September of 2021, which I'm very excited about. Okay, so now we're going to bring on our guests, which I'm just thrilled to have. And here they are. It is Donnie Williams, Terry Martin, Raven Ung, Tony Vidala and Nikki Moody. Nikki is a costume designer. Tony is a sound designer. Raven is a costume designer. Donnie is a costume designer. And Terry is a scenic designer. Hi, guys. Welcome. Welcome to REDTalks. So I just want to start. I mean, if people don't know what designing is or how this sort of, a lot of people they don't quite understand. They just think that, you wear your costumes from home or the lights are just always up there. That's what someone said. Well, aren't the lights just permanently there? Well, yes, but you have to, there's an art to all of that. And we don't have a lighting designer on tonight, but I want to start with Terry. Terry, because I always think, for me as a director, the first thing that I sort of, before I can do anything, I need to know what the scenic design is going to be. That's for me, is I have to know exactly, because that's going to affect how we're going to stage conceptually. So Terry, what is that collaboration like, and what is it? Obviously, you collaborate with the director, and then what are the other steps?
Well, now I'm a professor as well as a professional scenic designer. So I tell my students, my scenic design students, that you have the most important job at the very beginning. And because not only are you doing your job, but you are figuring out the jobs of everyone else. And so when I say that, I also ask them, who blocks or stages the show from the beginning? And most of them say the director, and that's what most people think, but actually it's the scenic designer. If I put a staircase upstage left, and Hunter, you need to stage that scene, you have to have your actors go upstage left to go up the staircase. So to make sure that we start off on the best foot, there's lots of preliminary talks between myself and the director, talking about their concept, their feeling. Are we setting it in the correct time period, or are we breaking that? So the director's style and vision, as they explain that to me, then I will start creating pictures in my head. I'll do a lot of research, going online, time period, whatever, and I save a huge file of those pictures, which then I can then share with the director, and I get their feedback on that artwork and those pictures, and then I can start designing. But you're right, there's a lot that goes into it before a pencil even hits the paper.
Charo, my dog. As soon as I go online, every single time, she just she has to bark. Okay, go. Get on the bed. Get 1 second. Get on the bed. Go get on the bed. Knock yourself out. Okay. So, but just to get a little Terry's experience with Redhouse. So Terry designed last year's All Night Strut, which then was converted into Once Upon a Mattress.
Yes.
So you had to do 2 shows.
Yeah, 2 shows with 1 set. Which
1 set.
For me, you called a good person to do that, because I kind of did that every year for a decade at Great Lakes Theater in Cleveland. We had the All City musical every year, which was anyone from the school district. And what we would do is I would kind of save pieces of sets throughout the Great Lakes season, and eyeball those things and say, okay, I can make these work for West Side Story in the summer with the students. So coming in and seeing a set and knowing that I had to change that, especially into a fun musical that there was a lot of youth and things in it, I just kind of followed the same pattern.
Yeah. Here, just to show, this was the All Night Strut, and here's another picture of the All Night Strut, in which I loved. I mean, I don't know where you guys found that jukebox, but man,
some wonderful man donated it.
God, it was so beautiful. Yeah. But I just love the feel of it, the sort of just classic sort of big band with the curved steps.
Yeah. And for that kind of show, I mean, if you look back again, when I did the research, that's how it was in the 30s, 40s. It was simple, slick, and it was about the performers and the musicians and their beautiful gowns and their tuxedos. And there you have it. I just needed to make a beautiful frame for it.
So Nikki, we have done, I don't know how many shows together.
A bazillion.
So Nikki and I have I can't even imagine how many shows that we've gotten up to this point. I mean, what is it like working with, having a director you work with a lot, like it, so because I think that we sort of have a shorthand with each other. We sort of know how it is.
Yes, and that's a fantastic thing. Is I can show you images and research, and you kind of know where my head's going in it. So I think working with a director over and over again is actually a benefit and makes the process go a whole lot faster.
What was the strangest request that I ever?
You can't ask that, because sometimes you make requests that are joking, and I will full-fledged go and start the research process on it.
Mm-hmm. Maybe
I mean, there's been chickens, there's cows, there's a Krampus, there's...
It was a, yes. And just to let you know, Nikki did the costume design for Rent, which I just want to talk about this costume.
That is
Angel's
amazing.
Costume. Amazing. Where did you find, like, because I think the thing is that everyone, thinks of Angel having the same costume that everyone always sees, but you sort of took this in a completely different direction. And what was your thought process on this outfit?
Well, I think it kind of started at the beginning when we were all collaborating, you, myself, Carolyn, of really how we wanted to see Rent and the grittiness of it, and then exploring Angel in a different manner. I didn't necessarily, with all the productions that I've done, I didn't personally see Angel that way. And I saw it a little more, not flamboyant, more dazzly, I guess. And so just doing research of like random showgirl costumes and thinking about Angel would be sort of making this in her space and what she could find from resale shops in the Lower East Side or different trim shops, and to kind of mishmash it together in what Angel would have made.
Well, I think what's interesting, and we can transition over to Donnie to talk about costumes design as well, is that you design costumes. Also, you have to, as a designer, especially the costume designer, because you have to understand character. You have to understand who these characters are, because you're designing for a specific character and where they would get what kind of person would buy this kind of these clothes. Donnie, like what is your approach to design when you are like, what's the first thing that you do? Like when you look at a script, what is the creative process for you?
Sure. So for me, I'm constantly analyzing who are these people. In my opinion, it's the costume designer's job to tell the audience who these people are before they even open their mouths. So I'm very interested in their class level, what their income is, their age, what age they grew up and learned how to fashion their hair, or somebody who's older may have learned something from a different time period that they may still possess that style a little bit. And obviously it's working with, I take a lot of my cues from the set design. The set designer is normally telling you what the world looks like that you're going to be playing within. So I take a lot of my cues from set design, and obviously through conversations with the director, whatever their world looks like and whatever specific ideas they may have. But for me, it's all about just telling a story through the use of clothing, which I think is fascinating.
Just to, I love the costume design for Donnie's done a ton of stuff at Redhouse, but specifically for me this year, he did a couple of shows, and one was Romeo and Juliet, which I just loved this outfit for Juliet. And I know that it was a dystopian sort of, version of the show. And what was it like sort of taking those different styles in Romeo and Juliet and putting them and having what I loved about your design is that it wasn't quite like the world was not our world. It was some world that we don't know, but yet you took all these ideas together and made it feel very cohesive.
Thanks. That's kind of my job.
Yeah.
For Romeo and Juliet, it's just, Melissa was fantastic, and Apollo, they had a very clear vision of what they wanted. So it was set not too distantly in the future. So a lot of fashions I thought should have been taken from today's time. When did fashion production stop?
Hmm.
And for whom did it stop? So there's obviously class level differences in Romeo and Juliet. So we wanted those who were rich to be sort of very opulent in the face of severe poverty.
Hmm.
And what does that mean? Does somebody who's lower class have any costume changes? Maybe not. Maybe all they own is what's on their body.
Hmm.
Whereas somebody who's dripping in wealth, maybe they're wearing a fur in the middle of a bomb site.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what it developed into being.
Yeah, I think that's, again, someone just wrote fascinating. But I do think it's that I don't think people quite understand what it takes to put on a show, and the fact that, and the amount of people that it takes to put on a show, because if you're doing a Broadway show, you're going to have the lighting designer, and they're going to have their two assistants, and they're going to, or a costume designer, they're going to have their two assistants. Like it's a giant, and of course we don't necessarily have assistants because we're on a smaller scale, but it's a lot of people and a lot of work that goes into, and a lot of preparation. I mean, Terry, you would probably start, as a scenic designer, you would start pretty early in the process, at least, 3 months out, 2 to 3 months out. Let's unmute Mr. Martin. It won't let me. We can't hear you. Yeah. There we go. No, you're still muted.
There it is.
There we go.
Yeah, at least 3 months if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
We love 6 months, but that's 3 months, and then everyone's waiting on me. The lighting designer is like, "Can I have a ground plan so I know where to send the director and stage manager? I need a ground plan and what's going on." And so I've got to be on top of it right away.
Yeah, and the lighting designer I always think the lighting designer gets it the worst, because the scenic, and we don't have a lighting designer on tonight, but just know that, so the scenic designer will have 3 months, and then you're in talks with the costume designer, and the lighting designer's working with the scenic designer to figure out where the lights are going to go, and working in colors that match the set, and then the scenic designer has like tech to do all their work and to write their cues in the board, and if techs are short, sometimes it's 2 days, and the line.
They'll stay all night long, not sleep, and just keep writing cues.
Yeah, they have to do I have time as a director to to plan, to come in, to rehearse, and then the lighting designer has like 2 seconds to get everything done.
Yeah.
Raven, let's talk. What you did? What's it like for a show? Because you did Likage,
yes,
which is always going to be a tremendous undertaking. So what's it like to do a big show that and the costumes are so much a part of Likage? It's what, you know what I mean? Especially for Zsa Zsa, for the Kajels, like it's so much a part. Like, what is that like? The taking where the costumes are like the star.
Yeah, so really a lot has to do with preparation. I think one of the few things that I really started working on is to make sure that I will have an army of people who might potentially work with me. So that was one thing that I really have to factor in at the beginning, making sure that once I go to Syracuse, that everything will be, as my fingers are crossed, that everything will go smoothly in terms of everything, because I knew right there and then that things will have to be built. And so that really was the first thing that I made sure about. And really a lot has to do with communicating with your director, of course. And as I would remember, Cassie and I would talk about the build-up, because if the first musical number alone is already something that's big, and we were talking through, and Cassie happens to be the choreographer as well, so all that has to do with the progression from the Kajels transforming from one costume to the next and on to the next, and all of that stuff. So really, preparation played a very big part in the early process.
There's Steve Hayes.
It's Steve. Yeah. So this gown really was completely built from scratch, and
Oh, wow.
and Donnie and it's something that Donnie and I have been talking about even before I went to Syracuse. And the first time, because when I did on Golden Pond as the first show, I have been seeing Donnie, but it was not until Likage where I finally got the chance to work with him. So when I had this first phone conversation with him, we hit it off right away, and which I guess is another way of doing your preparation. Your prep time is making sure that
There's some more photos.
more photos. Mm-hmm.
Look at that. That's gorgeous. That's that color. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Some more photos. And is that's Aubrey?
That's Aubrey, yes.
And one of the Kajels? Correct? Am I wrong? Right?
I think this is the girlfriend,
Oh,
the fiance.
yes. You're right. You're right. Yep. And there's Steve Hayes again.
Yeah, Steve Hayes. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a question we can have all the, because Donnie helped you on this show, and Nikki, because I know that the preparation for we go into tech, and when you're dealing with a lot of costumes, and Nikki sort of like, and I loved how Nikki and Donnie worked on some of the shows that is on Rent, and also shows that have a lot of costumes, like the coordination of going to a show and making sure that all those costumes and people get into those costumes, that they're wearing the right thing. Because what happens sometimes in tech is you get into technical rehearsals, and then these actors who have they've been doing their show in the rehearsal room, and all of a sudden you've got Nikki in there going, or Donnie or Raven going, here, wear this, do this, and then it's as an actor, it's a bit overwhelming having to do with costumes. I always felt that was the hardest part for me. It was like, I have to wear this, I have to wear this, I have to wear this. So a lot of times it's wise to sort of to get costume pieces early, so you can sort of get used to them and live with them in the rehearsal process. But I always know that, but there is a management to that as well, right, Nikki? Because I know, Nikki, you're sort of a master at that.
Oh, 100%. I think it's really important to make sure the actor during the fitting process, even though they're not going to remember when we finally do get to tech, if you go through every piece, and so it's sort of someplace way back in their brain, and it's, for me, I create these detailed pieces and parts lists that I post at every actor station. I make sure wardrobe, if we have dressers, they have it, stage management has it. And for me personally, it's kind of crazy, because as the designer and you're doing massive shows, like when we did Christmas Carol, I can actually keep it all in my head. I don't know how, of going, okay, that's not supposed to be worn there, this is supposed to be worn here. And a lot of it is helping the actor through, of like, no, this is okay, and don't worry, we're going to get through this. We have people backstage that are here to help you, to help remember, and we're going to put your costume back on, stage left to do this quick change. But yeah, it's a huge undertaking, and I don't think people actually realize how intense and how hard that process is. It's not just the designing, it's about the sheer amount of organization that actually has to go into costuming.
Yeah, that's when I get stressed out, when I see it stresses me out as a director, and it stresses me out as an actor. So let's get to the Tony. So if you don't know, Tony Vidala is you also teach as well, and I was, it's at OCC or Syracuse that you're at? Both, right? No,
I'm at Onondaga.
Okay.
At OCC. Yeah. I have colleagues at Syracuse.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. But I think Redhouse would probably collapse if we didn't have Tony. Tony's been a part of just about every show that since I've been there, and done many more shows. And he's sort of an integral part of everything we do at Redhouse. And sound design is the least, I always say, for me, it's like I can do scenic and lights. I'm like, I know what I want scenically. I know what I want lights wise. Costumes, I'm like, Nikki, what do you think? Because I'm always like, I don't know. But sound design, I'm always just like, I don't, I think it's the hardest thing to perfect, because it's tricky, because it's not an easy thing, trying to make sure, especially with musicals and spaces and people's face, sometimes with the mics, sometimes. Yeah. So to talk a little bit about the art of sound design.
Well, I guess it's two different things. So approaching sound design for a play is somewhat different than a musical. You know, in a play, the sound design has to be part of the story. It could be sometimes character-like in the show. Most of the time, the actors aren't mic'd in a play. I start out by, just like everybody else, what is the director's vision? What time period? Is this a classic show that we're changing, like a Shakespearean thing, such as Romeo and Juliet? And then read the script. And then sometimes the author will have, the playwright will have indicated sounds. And then I look for where things can be added to help either add to the emotional value or time and place or things like that in terms of sound. One of the things that's been happening in theater sound is the application of almost like cinema surround sound. So we, like for Romeo and Juliet and Rent, we had this ability to add this soundscape that kind of, you know, the audience was enveloped in it all the way around. And that kind of adds a lot to that and that experience for the audience. Now, a musical is, you know, you have to make sure that the audience can hear everything nice and clear, the vocals, the band mix, all of that. And that's the most difficult because everybody has an opinion of loudness. So whether it's the producer, the director, audience members, sometimes at intermission, the front of house management might get a comment, oh, it's too loud, or I can't hear such and such. And just like, you know, in tech, there's not a lot of time to really do the finesse on the mix. When we're doing a musical, usually there's a band rehearsal that's just, or an orchestra rehearsal by itself, and we have a chance to listen to that. Then there's going to be some type of sitz probe or a Vondel probe where the actors can get a chance to listen to the orchestra, move around the space, and kind of listen for what they need to hear in terms of their cues and pitch. And then we go into tech, which is usually just the piano. Then we get 2 dress rehearsals with the orchestra, and we have a preview. So really, there's only 2 times that we do the musical in full costume with blocking and lights and all of that. So it's always kind of nerve-wracking. And sometimes there are all-nighters, you know, trying to fix things. When we're miking, I have to coordinate with costumes for sure. You know, the mic packs are about a little bit shorter than a deck of cards, but a little thicker. So what is the character wearing? Where can we put the mic pack? Sometimes they're hidden inside the thigh. Sometimes they're in the middle of the back. They might be sometimes in wigs or in hats, you know, hidden up there. We've done some tap stuff with the pack down strapped in a sock in the ankle so we can hear the shoes, things like that. So coordinating with that. Hats are also a big issue, you know, where we're putting the mics because that can create a shadow of sound. Working with the scenic designer, where are we placing speakers? And then is it going to be in the way of a light? So not being able to worry about casting shadows or big black squares on the set. So there's a lot of that. And it starts 3-4 months out. You know, we were planning for Fun Home in May, and I know we were conversing back and forth in email in January and February about the scenic ideas and the fact that it was a deep thrust. And if we were going to have part of the band on stage and part remote, you know, that kind of thing. So, yeah, we start at least 3 months, hopefully longer, to get it right.
And what are some of the challenges? And you know, it's interesting because in a lot of ways, Redhouse is still a new facility in which we haven't quite figured everything out yet.
Right.
And I remember the challenges of, so when Redhouse was initially in Theater 1, which is our big space, the early shows were all in proscenium, but then Rent, we went into the round. And so that was brought up a whole host of challenges when we went into the round. Correct?
Yeah.
How was that? Because I know that we were like, it was like, Rent was like guinea pigs because we were trying to figure out how that was going to work sound wise.
Sure. So if you think about a proscenium setup, it's almost like sitting in your living room watching like a film, and you have a stereo system, and the sound is all coming from one direction in terms of the main mix. When you go into the round, you have audience all the way around, and you want to try to provide them with the same experience as they would be sitting in proscenium. The good thing about Rent was that we were able to put the entire band in a remote room and mic it like a recording studio. So I didn't have to worry about the ambient sound of the drums in one corner of the theater next to an audience section where they were hearing just the percussion, because it would have been like really difficult to achieve a good balance. So what I took the approach on that was I looked at the four sides of the theater as four separate prosceniums. And I crafted the speaker setups and the design so that it was four separate, and trying to maintain a stereo mix for each area of the audience. We took a lot of time, you guys, even outside of tech and rehearsals, where I came in and we were playing back tracks and we were taking decibel measurements and listening to the, some tracks in different areas, trying to get it as best we could before we introduced, the band and all that. The other thing that happened with Redhouse is when we went into the round, all the soft goods went away, and it changed the actual natural reverberation in the space, and actually for the better. I remember walking in there and we started listening, and I thought this is going to actually be really, really cool. And I think it was an experiment. I think we had a great success with it.
Just to throw out some theater jargon, so explain what soft goods, or if Terry wants to. No, because some people may not know, because I throw around stuff all the time, and people are like, what are you saying? And I'm like, oh, they don't speak our language. Like, we have our own, explain what soft goods are.
Well, our big main drape is this gigantic, very heavy, probably 20-ounce velour red with a backing that just soaks up all the sound. And then there are legs that come down that kind of block the sides going off. And then there's an upstage. There might be a traveler that closes off. That's a curtain, and then a cyc and that kind of thing. So all of that soft material absorbs sound. It doesn't reflect. The walls in the theater are also treated with this material that helps with clarity of diction. So you don't get a lot of reverberation when you're doing an unmiked show. It makes it easier for the audience to hear the dialogue a little bit more clear. It's not reverberating. Think about going into a large cathedral and trying to listen to somebody speak, and it starts to just reverberate over and over again, and it gets hard to understand it. So the architects, I think, worked with an acoustic designer to try to figure out where to treat the walls. So having that plus the soft goods really made it sort of a dead space with all that. So then when we opened it up, it was much more live.
I helped take down that red curtain.
Yes.
It was the heaviest thing. Oh my God. I think our technical director pulled a shoulder out of socket or something. Scott. It was just, my God. Anyway. So you touched on, and I'll open this up to the group. You touched on a little bit, and first of all, I want to say we're getting a lot of, this is interesting. If anyone out there has questions for any of the designers, because I know I'm getting a lot of comments about how interesting this is, and because I do think it's interesting. I think it's sort of a glimpse behind the scenes and how we create shows. Please ask some questions. I'd love to get your comments and ask some of our designers some of your questions. But you touched on a little bit, Tony, and I talk about this a lot about collaboration, and we all know this when a team is really working together, and just how, it's the same thing with shows. We have actors, and sometimes we collaborate well, but when you really get a good design team together and you collaborate, it's and everyone's working and helping each other, and it's really. That's my favorite part about this being a director is the collaborative part. And just let everyone know, when we start the first process, and when we hire the designers and the director starts talking to the designers, is we have what's called a production meeting. And the production meetings are usually run by the production manager. And we'll sit around the table, and everyone will go by department, and we'll talk about the design and the needs. And then we sort of, and what's great sometimes about those meetings is we help each other, and you guys will help, because we all are theater artists, and it's not just specific to what we do. I mean, Nikki's given me notes about actors. Nikki's giving me notes about script.
Have I? about the script?
There was we did a show at Jiva called The Other Josh Cohen, is before we came to Off Broadway, and there was that one night that was like, oh my God, we were up to like 4:30 in the morning talking about the script.
Oh yeah,
God,
that was a rough night. It was a rough performance before that night.
Yes. But what is it? I mean, anyone can speak up. What is it about the collaborative process and working with judges? Like I said, some work closer than others, because like the scenic designer really has to work closely with the lighting designer. That's a big one. And like you said, you have to also work with the scenic designers about where to put them, the speakers and things like that. What is that like?
I don't think people realize actually how much all of the departments collaborate together. You know, you would never think like, oh, costumes and sound, but there's a lot that we end up talking about. And the same with scenic of, okay, I need a place to store these costumes, or, you know, this, and with props. So I think for that outsider, they don't actually realize how much we do have to collaborate in order to put this piece up. And especially when it comes to tech, when you only have, 2 days, 3 days, it's everybody's got to be in it together, and there can't be animosity or anything against it. It's if you're in the weeds, call out and have help from whatever department that will help you.
Yeah, and I mean, I think during Christmas Carol, because Nikki also designed Syracuse Christmas Carol, and Tony. Tony did the sound of that as well. But it was, there was one moment where we had all sorts of people were in that one Saturday morning, like painting the set. Like it was just, everyone was just like, it was all hands on deck to get that show up. And Terry, we worked together on the first time we worked together was at Western Carolina, which you're a professor at, and so this. Let me give you this story. So I get asked to come down to direct Beauty and the Beast down at Western Carolina, which is a wonderful campus, beautiful part of the state, North Carolina. And we rented the set. Our Western rents this set in which, so I'll never forget. I don't know if you sent it to me. Someone sent me pictures, and all the pictures and the renderings were. Now this is a rented set that Terry had never seen.
Never seen it. No.
And I said, I don't remember if it was you. And I said, this is not the same set. It was like 3 different ground plans.
Yeah, it was completely a mess. I mean, the package for it on the website, they had shots of it put up in different ways. And some of those things came with it. Some of those things did not come with it. It was a mess.
And I would tell the actors, I'm like, so you go up these stairs, maybe.
Well, and there were areas too. Remember, like the prison, where they had her father. The area of the set that was supposed to be for that was, quite frankly, a joke. I mean, it was 4 feet, this 4-foot platform. You would have had to shove the guy under. No one in the audience would have seen him. And so, I get the notes. Hunter's like, where are we going to do this? And so it's just like, okay. But that's what we did. We figured out options. We said, well, we could take this piece of the set, rip a hole in it, and put a jail cell door there, and that'll work. And it ended up being a much better option than what the set came with. We realized very quickly the set didn't come with a library.
Oh, yeah.
It did come with a library, but that part of the set had been defunct for however many years. And so we had to create a library for Hunter on the fly.
Yeah, and I think it's
collaboration.
Problem solving. You have to, as designers, you have to problem solve in the moment as well.
Yeah. And a lot of big problems come at the last minute when you're in tech. So you're time crunched, right? Yeah.
Yeah. That set, I'll never forget that. And just being like,
actually, I got some rental money back for that.
Oh, good.
I had some words with the company when it was over.
But but the good thing is that you have someone like you who could solve those problems, and I imagine some designers would not be able to. It's harder. You have to be.
A very young designer might have just frozen, and I don't know what to do. I can't do anything, and that's a really awful position to be in when you're young.
Yeah. Donnie, so talking about problems, this is first of all, one of my favorite suits from God of Carnage, which was like, and Jeremy looked
I'm
great.
assuming
in
it's
this.
going to be Jeremy's suit.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think Nikki used it for Christmas Carol.
She sure did.
And but I asked, I said, God, that suit looks good. I was like, and then you're like, yeah, it's like, how much was it?
I think it was $80 on Amazon.
But
Fitted like a glove.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Is it looks like he was supposed to be this, rich guy, and you made him look like you took $80 and you made him look fantastic. This is my question: is it? And Nikki's is so artful at this because we're always on a budget. We don't have a lot of money to do these things. What's it like to, if someone's like, especially for God of Carnage, where people are supposed to look wealthy and you have, no money to do, to do that. I mean, what's the difficulty in doing that, and how do you overcome it?
Well, you have to prioritize immediately where to spend the money. God of Carnage posed its own set of challenges because, for anybody watching or doesn't know the show, there's a puking scene in the show. So immediately during one of our production meetings, one of my questions was, how many people are getting hit with this? Because then it goes into laundry and how do we prepare for the next show? Specifically, Jen's outfit, both Jen and Jeremy, these well-off characters, wore business suits that had to be dry cleaned every night in between shows so that they were ready for the next evening's performance. But in terms of spending money, you just have to, I guess, trust your gut as to what needs to look expensive. But I think I speak for all costume designers in saying that we sometimes have to make something look really expensive when a $5 budget. I don't always know how we do that, but we do.
That poor suit. That I was surprised that it made it to Christmas Carol because, it was falling apart. It got vomited on so many times, and it was crusty and sorry, be gross, but it was, it would dry. It's not real vomit. It was oatmeal and I think applesauce. Applesauce. But also, it's reusing things that, that we have a costume stock and it is taking something that was in another show. I mean, Nikki, that maroon velvet jacket that at Bucks County.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that got used in every single one of our shows, and the same with the one bathrobe, from
from Summer 42.
Yeah, that was still in every one of our shows.
And was there a lobster shirt, or there was a?
There's been a lobster shirt. I think that only had one preview. Only one show. I don't think that one's been reused.
Oh, well, no. And it's funny. Nikki won't tell me, so I'll just say, I'm like, is that the robe from? Because I think that robe's been used at least three times, I believe.
In all of our Bucks County shows, it's been in, I think, all but maybe one. And then I even had them was it maybe when we were doing something in Aspen, or maybe it was something at Redhouse, I ended up having them send me it just in case. Because I was like, I don't know, it's Hunter's show. We might need that bathrobe.
We need to get that bathrobe in Syracuse.
You say the word, I'll have them ship it.
Raven,
it'll just be passed.
Well, I mean, now it's like a Hitchcockian thing. Like, it's just every time you see one of our shows, it disappears for no, randomly. Raven, you said you did. First, I want to talk about how do you do a show like Likage on a budget?
Yeah, so like what I mentioned earlier, right after all things or all designs have been approved by the director, then now the next step to that would be creating pieces list and figuring out which ones are going to be bought, which ones are going to be pulled or rented and built. So those are the four different areas from which you can gather all of these materials, and of course, needless to say, the ones that needed to be built will have to be sourced, and fabrics might will definitely have to be part of the list for expenses and all of that. So once you have a brief estimate of how the the budget is going, then that's when you can add in the pieces that can be rented or potentially can be rented. And so that's what you it's most of the time it's how we call it, the budget wizardry. Because for some weird reason, I think it's actually a skill that a costume designer also needs to possess. For some magical reasons, things just fall into their right places, and somehow, just like what Donnie mentioned earlier, somehow we make it work.
Well, I mean, Nikki and I, we did Rocky Horror many years ago, which turned out to be at Bucks County, and they do it every year now. They're even thinking about doing it this year as a concert. So just let you know, yeah. But we was it Party City that we had?
Yeah, the very first year, because they thought it was going to be a concert reading, and we were like, "What? No, it's Rocky Horror. That's not a concert reading." And so, there was like $100. Like, it was pathetic, the amount of money, and it was you and me out shopping.
We've
looking
shopped
for things.
We've shopped for props in Aspen. So that's what I'm saying is that this is the collaboration. Is like and Nikki and I were going from. And if you've ever been to Aspen, there's one store, Carl's.
You go to Carl's.
You go to Carl's, and Carl's has everything.
They do. You can get automotive, fabric, dishware,
alcohol,
and like a normal drugstore. So yeah.
Yeah. If you ever go to Aspen, go to Carl's.
And if I may add, really, online shopping has done, miracles for us.
Except for Aspen.
Yeah. Aspen. It was like 3, 4, 5 days sometimes.
Yeah,
it was sort of like I'll go in during Christmas Carol time. I was having a hard time getting stuff in Syracuse because of the holidays.
Well, we're getting a new warehouse here. We're getting a big.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Fancy.
We're getting a new.
Wow.
They're two of them. Two of them. Yeah, they're going to employ 1,000 people, and it's going to be a hub. Amazon. So it's going to be like one day. Or same day.
Brilliant.
Or I'll just drive by the warehouse and pick it up.
Give you my shopping list.
So before we wrap up, I always ask this of everyone on Red Talks. If you could just give me one thing you've learned over I just realized it's been 4 months. Like really, like it just feels like it's been a lifetime. My wife, she went home back to New York yesterday. And so it was the first time that it's been it's the first time we've been together for 4 months. And I was like, where is it? I suddenly have felt really like alone. This whole place felt huge. And because it's true. You go through this whole thing and it feels like, I don't know, like it feels like it's been going on for a long time, and it's only been 4 months. But just gonna start with Donnie. Donnie, like, what is there anything that you've taken away from this time, or anything you've learned, or about yourself, or anything you want to share, just about what this time has meant to you?
You mean quarantine?
Yeah, since the pandemic and quarantine. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it was a well-needed break. I work a lot. I'm a full-time hairstylist, and then when I do costume, it's another full-time job on top of it. So for me, it was really understanding what work-life balance really is, and maybe I do enjoy being home sometimes.
And I have to say, you and Stefan had a lot of time on your hands, because there were a lot of Facebook videos. A lot of every time I was like, "What is happening over at their house?"
He's a kook. Oh my god, he's crazy.
I don't know what was going on.
I'd be like wallpapering a room or something, and he'd come up and he'd be like, "Babe, do you have a minute?" And I'd be like, "I'm not making the video right now. Like, I'm not doing it."
But you guys were building.
I used most of the time.
You were building things.
Yeah, I used most of the time to redecorate the house. We redid 4 rooms. We built a pergola, gardens. Delusions of grandeur.
What about you, Terry?
Yeah.
There it is. I think it must be an artist thing, because same as Donnie, I didn't realize how much I needed the break. But now that it's gone on for so long, I think I've really realized how much I love what I do, because I miss doing it so much. And I have a whole new water feature in the back. I put in a waterfall. I built the patio furniture. I've redone 3 rooms in the house. Same thing. But the one important thing, I think everybody needed the break. And I think maybe everybody having this break and having this time to reflect and really think about things has spurred a lot of movements over the last 4 months and things. So I think maybe this kind of stop and listen for a second, and force to do it has caused some good things to start moving. So
yeah,
that's what I've got.
I agree. Nikki, besides your neighbor, what if you?
Well, I think for me, because when I schedule my shows, I do try to make sure that I have a bit of a break in between. So my next show was from Christmas Carol, and then I was going to have a bit of spring to myself when Pete was home, and then go to Fun Home. So my break has been extended. So it's more of like a 6-month break now at this point, which will turn into a year break. And so I personally really miss seeing my friends and collaborators. But we did build an outdoor kitchen. So, there's that, as you do.
So I'm saying, like, Home Depot and Lowe's probably made more money over the past.
Oh my God. And Pete and I would just go there just to get out.
Yeah. That and liquor and hardware.
Great combo.
Nikki turned me on to the boxed wine, which when the pandemic started, like I'll never forget, like everyone thought that everything was going to close. There was a run on everything. So we went to the liquor store and we got like 4 boxes of the boxed wine because I kept thinking, we got to load up, babe. We got to load up. They're going to shut the liquor stores down. Of course they didn't shut the liquor stores, but I tried the boxed wine. Tony, what about you?
So I same thing. Teaching and doing theater full time, it was a good time to just stop and smell the roses kind of thing. But I did know that I do miss the collaboration. There's a part of my brain that just needs to be fed, and my soul, and that happens in live theater and what we can create for an audience. And I kind of really am missing that. I did have one opportunity this summer to do a sound design for an original play that was a local playwright, and he did it as a fundraiser when the quarantine was lifted and people could gather outside in small groups of like 16 or 20. He did it in his backyard, and he called it Under the Mulberry Tree. We hung up some LED lights. I put a couple speakers out there, and it was set on the Carolina coast, so out at the Outer Banks. And there was swimming sound effects and kids and seagulls and all that. And looking at the reaction from the people who came, it was a fundraiser for a local community art folk group. They were hungry and thirsty for live theater because the comments they made afterwards, they hung around and people socially distanced and everybody had masks on, but they were saying, we really needed this. They like the virtual stuff, but there's just something special about that human to human connection. So I missed that. But I am going to take a lesson from this time and have some Tony time, for myself, because it's been a welcome. Yeah.
And Raven?
Yeah, just like Terry and Tony, I also teach at the university. And what I would always tell my students is that we are in the business of theater because we have the ability to share. And I honestly think that theater is the most generous art form that there is. And so during this quarantine season, it's just being able to share. Just for instance, I have been giving some free lectures and free talks in classes and all of that. And trying to be more productive and creative as well while being home and staying home. So really, it's all about realizing how important it is to have the human connection, of course, and the collaboration, just like what Tony said, and being able to still be creative and productive while being home. So.
And yeah, I even felt that today, Tony, when I saw the kids do their thing. I was just like overwhelmed. I got emotional about it because I'm like, they're performing. Yeah. And so the theater was alive today. And that was, it was very moving to think that, and we're thinking of things every single day about what we can do and how we can get back. So anyway, I want to thank you all so much for being a part of this tonight. Coming back, I know that Carolyn Moraz couldn't join us tonight, and she was going to be on. She was a scenic designer for Rent, and just did a really fantastic job. If you guys had seen Rent, it was just a really, really cool design, and that's right there. And this is another one of Nikki's designs for Maureen. So yeah, we want to, and she's a really terrific designer, and we've done the other Josh Cohen together as well. But I want to thank you all for being great collaborators, for all that you've done for me personally and for Redhouse, and I hope we can all work together again soon. I really do. Okay, thanks so much, guys. So just to let everyone know about next week's show, we are going to have a play reading, which is very exciting. So we're going to do an original play called Will, and it's going to be starring Jeremy Kushner, who was in God of Carnage with us this year, and Paul Nolan, who was recently in Slave Play and was also in Bright Star on Broadway. So we're going to have two Broadway stars. They're going to read a play by Serge Kushner, Jeremy's brother, and a local favorite, Steve Gamba, will also be a part of that as well. And that will be happening next Tuesday at 6:30. We're going to do it right here on StreamYard. And it's going to be a play. And the more that we can do these kind of things, whether it's on StreamYard or Zoom, we want to continue to do that. If the theater needs your help, we can't survive without your donations, your help. Just understand how devastating this has been for not just the actors, but for the designers and the directors and the choreographers and the musical directors and the stage managers. It's a huge industry that is not only in New York, but it's across the country. And a lot of people who, have been in this business for a long time are now out of work and will probably be out of work for some time. And we want to, there is going to be a time when this is going to end. It's going to end. And we want to be prepared and ready to come back, because I do think that the theater has been an important part of these events, whether it was the Blitz in World War II, when the theaters in London continued to perform, or it was in 9/11. You're in Town is a show that I was in. It was the first show that opened after 9/11. We opened on September 20th, after the tragic events of 9/11. And as I've said many times, it was important for theater to come back, because it helped us all come together in a really important way. And so we need this. We need theater to come back. So if you've got $1 or $5, and just donate to any theater. If you're seeing this across the other places, donate to your local theater. And you can also donate to us, the redhouse.org. Please check out our website. Please check out some of the things we got going on. We've got camps, we got REDTalks, we got some online events. We're really preparing ourselves for the future, and we're looking at what we can do both in the fall and in the spring, and sort of preparing for 21-22. I want to thank my wonderful Syracuse community, and we're so thankful that you've joined us tonight and got a little sneak peek about our designers, because they work really, really hard, and we can't do these shows without these talented artists. So next week, it will be the play called Will, and it will star Jeremy Kushner and Paul Nolan, and we will see you next week on Red Talks.